If you're a business owner and you're running the Google Ads yourself for your own business, I have 12 things here that I see most commonly done wrong in client accounts that I audit. And when I audit accounts, it's not typically from another agency, but it's almost always when the business owner is running the Google Ads themselves. So here are the 12 most common things I see. I just did an audit just today for a client. I saw almost all of these things come up, and I just see it being it's just a massive pattern. So I almost want to go ahead and make this video. These are 12 things that you should make sure that you are not doing in your Google Ad account that is crushing results for you. So let's go ahead and get started, okay? Number one, this might seem obvious, but it's making sure that you have the most spend into the campaign that's converting the best. So I'm gonna assume that most of you guys are probably, some type of service-based business. If you're e-commerce, then when I say cost per acquisition or cost per lead or cost per conversion, just assume that's native for whatever you're optimizing for, whether it's return on ad spend or lead gen. But for most of this video, I'm just going to be using the lead gen example. So again, it seems obvious, but you need to make sure that you have most of your budget out of however many campaigns you have in the campaign that is getting you the cheapest cost per conversion. But what you might be thinking as well, Johnny, every time we run a Performance Max campaign, that campaign always has the cheapest, conversions, but we're not sure if they are the best. So here is the way to try that, because in your industry, I'm sure Performance Max is going to get you the most and the most cost-effective leads, but they're not always going to be the best converters. So what you need to do is you need to duplicate your landing page that you are using for all of your ads, and then, duplicate it, give it some URL, maybe just add -PMX at the end of it so you know which is which. Use a different phone number as well, and then, you can use the same form or not. However you want to, just make sure that when people are coming in or leads are coming in, that they are tagged correctly so you know which campaign they're coming from. This is going to actually help you separate the leads and the phone calls that you're getting from all of your campaigns combined. So you can see, okay, is the Performance Max, like, let's say that maybe, 5 out of 10 leads are not very good, but you're getting a much cheaper price. Then you can use it to see how much of your total spend should be going into that Performance Max. So that is that. Going on to the second one here, I have my note here that says search campaigns, not overlapping ad groups, or people typically just have too many ad groups thrown into one. So that was kind of jumbled, but what I'm trying to say is when I look at someone's search campaign setup, whether they have one search campaign or multiple search campaigns, I typically see that people are either using broad or phrase match keywords, and one of two things. One is that they have, a few different ad groups, but they have so many overlapping keywords because of the match type, right? Again, if it's broad or if it's phrase, they typically have a lot of overlapping keywords, which is not going to help you. That's going to, mainly it's going to cannibalize the campaign itself. Or what I see is that someone has, and I see this the most, is that someone will have one ad group and they have like 100 or 50 plus keywords in there. So basically what you need to do is you need to find a happy medium. I always go by the method. It's called STAGs, STAGS, which is single theme ad groups. So if you're a mobile auto detailer, have an ad group for mobile auto detailing, car washing, etc., stuff like that, right? You don't want to have everything in one, and same thing with locations, okay? So if let's say you're in Arizona and you're in Phoenix, Chandler, Scottsdale, Mesa, whatever, you don't want to have keywords that are promoting, for each of those cities if in your headlines you're going to be calling those out. Because what I mean is, let's say you have a keyword that says mobile auto detailing near me, Scottsdale, but you have every other city as a keyword in there as well. Then when someone is looking up your ads and they use one of those keywords and they trigger your ads, they run a very high risk of seeing an ad that says mobile auto detailing Chandler near you, but you're in Scottsdale. So that's very misleading. So what people do is either they have way too many keywords that are for, different themes, but for the same product or service, or different locations, etc., that are blended into ads that's just like blasting it. And what you need to do is you need to separate those. There needs to be a lot more segmentation and follow that single theme. And then the other thing that I see, like I mentioned, is just, instead of the people that have everything in one, they just have a bunch of different ad groups, but it's like all the keywords are almost the same, or like 50% of them are overlapping. So again, make sure you split those up. Segmentation, single theme ad groups, and single location as well, okay? The next thing is, this is kind of like a very, very similar keyword situation that I mentioned, but this is for negative keywords. So what I see is that people will have a ton of broad and negative keywords. So like, let's say you are a mobile auto detailing business, like the example I keep using. And if you have a negative broad match keyword that is auto shop, you run the risk of overlapping and, removing potential search terms because you have the word auto in that negative keyword, which is a broad match keyword. And your keywords that you are wanting have the word auto detailing in them. So I know this is kind of confusing to draw out, but hopefully you get what I'm saying, because the broad match is going to open up the umbrella all the way when phrase is going to be inside. But if you have the broad as a negative, it can overlap and limit some of your search terms, because it's just like redundant. You're overlapping. So make sure that you're not doing that. And then kind of going back to what I said earlier, this is the next one though, is multiple different location mentions in the same ad groups as headline. I know I kind of just talked about that, but again, don't have multiple headline mentions or multiple keyword mentions of different cities. You're just going to be putting them all in there. Okay, there is a line of code or a variable, I think it's what it's called, that you can use. So when someone looks up for your service and they use, or let's say they don't use the city name in the keyword, or they do, they only see the ad headline for the location they're in. So you have to look that up. I know it's confusing, but not a lot of people do that. They're going to just list a bunch of cities, but you don't want people from other cities seeing other cities. You want them to see their city. So again, just make sure that you're doing that. The next thing that I see people, they just make a ton of ads per ad group, or they just have one. So again, it's one of those things where I see people either doing it all in or all out, but it's still the wrong way. It needs to be right in the middle. So what I suggest is that you have at least two, and two is fine, but at least two ads per ad group, so you can split test copy. And then, even if one ad has a difference of a 2% conversion rate, that's huge. Okay, so what you need to be doing is you need to be testing different copy. Don't use the same ad copy, use all different copy. And what you need to do is you need to test these against each other, no matter how many you have. Let's just say you have two, and then whatever one is underperforming, pause it, a week, after a week, and then go ahead and make a whole new ad, turn that one on and run that one against it. Because you always want to be using different copy and, looking in your assets tab and seeing what headlines and whatnot are resonating with your audience the most, and, encouraging them to take action. So something I like to do also is I have 4 pillars of ad copy, which is basically anytime I write an ad, right, there's going to be 15 headlines, 4 descriptions. And if you're using a Performance Max, there's going to be, a short description and 4 long headlines. But between all those assets, and it's primarily the headlines, I always like to make sure I'm using some copy that is related to emotional, right? So what is someone actually getting? What do they want out of buying this product or service? Again, if it's mobile auto detailing, they probably want a nice, clean car. They want to look cool. They're going on a date. They want to freshen up their ride, etc. That's emotion. The next thing I always go for is expertise. What kind of equipment do you have? How long have you guys been in the game for? What's the skill, etc. The next one is always offer. If you have some kind of discount or package or subscription, always mention that. And then the next one I have is location. So especially for anything local, people always want to go local. So that's why it's very important that your Scottsdale ads are not saying Chandler. That's an immediate turnoff. The next guy is going to smoke you instantly, just because it's just hey, that's 40 minutes away. I'm not interested in that. Boom, done. So you have to make sure those are all aligned, but those are the 4 pillars of writing good ad copy that I use in every single ad. Going on, kind of combining this is, so you can only have locations set at the actual campaign level. So what you do then is use that line of code, that variable I said, to target the cities that people are in when they search, so they're not seeing the wrong cities. Or what you do is at first you start broad in your campaign, and then you go to your locations tab and you filter by city, or zip code, or however big of a radius that you're targeting. So typically what usually happens is, let's say you're targeting a big area like Phoenix and the surrounding areas. Somewhere like Phoenix is really gonna get most of the spend, just because it's a bigger area and there's more volume, there's more population compared to somewhere like Mesa. But that doesn't mean that Mesa isn't going to be a great converting place for you to advertise in. It just means that it's not seeing any spend because Phoenix is taking it. So I always like to start big and see where that spend actually goes first. And then I like to do it. It's a method I like to call dividing and conquering, where then you will duplicate this exact same campaign. And then in that duplicated campaign, pause Phoenix, or pause the place that's taking all that budget, and move 30% of your overall budget to this campaign to actually give those other surrounding cities their own budget. Because especially for a luxury service like the example I've been using of mobile auto detailing, that could be a really great service and people could love it in North Scottsdale and Paradise Valley. But if you're including, Scottsdale and Phoenix and everywhere else, Phoenix is probably going to take the budget, not giving enough spend to those niche pockets that might be, the most affluent, or, might just be your best converters. You never know till you try. Another thing too I see a lot of service-based businesses that have a supplement Performance Max campaign, and which is good, especially because a Performance Max campaign is always going to retarget people whether you want it to or not. It always will put a little bit of budget into that. But what I see is that people almost use this Performance Max campaign as a supplement, or a full encompassing PMAX, but it should be treated just like a search campaign, and you should have single theme asset groups, which is the same stags, which is same or single theme ad groups, the same exact thing for PMAX. You should be doing that as well. Okay. Don't put a bunch of cities, a bunch of different search themes, etc., and just a ton of audience signals into one, but really, again, make it intentional. Same thing with your copy, again, your signals, and then your creative especially. So don't make this full encompassing, because people are going to get the wrong messaging, because they're going to be seeing search ads. They're going to see ads on YouTube. They're going to see everything like they would if they were searching in Google. So you just don't want them to see the wrong stuff. You want to be speaking directly, to who you're advertising for. So there is that. The next thing I have in here is, so if you're going to be optimizing for leads, like again, we're talking about lead gen. So another thing that I see inside this Performance Max campaign is that I know it's encouraged by Google to use, past converters, like upload, basically like not upload, but you can connect your GA4 and your Google Tag Manager to your Google Ads, so you can, make lists of people that you can be advertising to. It's one of your audience signals. But the thing that I see a lot is people put past purchasers, or past converters into the targeting for the Performance Max. But you don't need to do that, because not only is the Performance Max going to retarget on its own, but if you are, generating leads, you don't need to be spending ad spend on, the same people who have already, filled out the form. It would be much better for you just to have called that person, or, booked that person successfully, and then be sending them emails, SMSs, or getting them on a subscription. I would not recommend putting your ad spend towards people who have already filled out your contact form, because they're already a lead. No need to do that. One of the next big things here, and this is something that I see happen a ton, and it is, I would say, when I was really getting into Google Ads a couple years ago, this is the thing that I had the most difficult time with. It just didn't make any sense to me. I didn't know how to do it correctly. And I see this issue. This is probably the biggest thing that I see holding people back from their account potential, is that it's going to be these next two things combined. Is that, one, people are just kind of putting random target CPAs or random target ROAS goals with no real data to back it. So I see people doing that based on data or results that they want to see, whether they're realistic or not. So these goals, right, like the target ROAS, target CPA, their goal or their job is to slowly improve, and by improve, I mean, lower your cost per conversion or increase the purchase ROAS of what you are already receiving, not what you randomly desire to receive. So if you cannot get any, leads for under $150, do not set your target CPA for $50, because Google's not going to know how to help you with that. You're way too off. So if you are going to do that for that range, and what I would suggest, if that's the problem that you're having, is you have a lot of other problems to fix before you start messing, with that target CPA, because that's way too high in the first place. But if you were to do it, then you should be putting it at like 140 and bringing it down week by week or bi-weekly to overall, optimize the whole account in general, and then use that on top of it as a cherry on top to just really tell Google what you want. But what I see people doing is, I'll even see people getting leads for $60 and they have the target CPA of $100. So that's also not helping you either, because you could actually be slowly lowering that to 55 to 50 to 45, and then seeing how it reacts and optimizing your account as a whole and bringing those down. So those are the two things I see there. And then kind of on top of that, this is a little bit separate, but it's kind of related. Because what happens is, typically when someone sets that target CPA number, then they watch it for a day or two and they go, oh wow, I got a lead for $80, and then they drop it or they up it, and they just mess with it way too often. So one of the last things I'm going to get into here that's the biggest is, sometimes people make way too many adjustments. And believe me, I optimize the accounts on the absolute fullest level. There is not one single thing missed, but you have to do it strategically. People are, making those bidding adjustments to TROAS, to TCPA based off of 1 or 2 days of data, and you are never ever going to get the results that you want if you just never give your time, or never give your ads time to leave the learning phase, and you're just pulling them around in different targeting directions. So that's a big thing. When you are optimizing, do it strategically and give the ads at least some time to to process what you're doing, because especially when you mess with bidding, you're changing the whole learning process and the whole learning AI model in the ad. So if you change it every day based on one result, that's not enough. That's like if you were trading stocks, but you're only looking at the chart that's of the stock today. You need to kind of open it up and look at what else is going on. It's 1 day's worth of a drop or an uptick is not enough to make you buy or sell. It shouldn't. So same thing goes with ads. Okay, you just have to let it do its thing, and you need to give it more time, and you need to observe it and then move based on that data, not what you want, but what you are seeing, and that's going to help you a lot. Then the very last thing, again, this touches more on the service-based businesses, but get more and get better reviews. If I'm running ads for 2 mobile auto detailing companies that are in Arizona, and one has 500 4.9 star reviews and one has 50 4.2 star reviews, I will bet you, I will personally guarantee it with my own money that we will have more success running ads for the higher ranking and the company with the more reviews, because there are ads everywhere now. People see past BS and people look at it. And when it comes to any kind of local service-based business, reviews is like the number one thing you could do to help your just organic local SEO anyways. So now, not only is that going to give you a ton more traffic and visibility, but people love seeing that. It screams that we're the best. And that's like, one of the biggest things that local businesses strive for and compete for is reviews, as I'm sure you probably know. So that also helps your ads a ton, because especially when people use, or if you're targeting keywords or people are looking up keywords that say near me or Scottsdale or whatever, and the Google My Business profile listings come up, it will, if you do it right, you should have your Google My Business account linked. And so it will show those stars alongside your ads, which is a huge authority builder. So make sure you're doing that. But everyone, thank you for watching. These are the 12 mistakes that I see. Or I guess not necessarily mistakes, but like these are just the 12 things that could be improved in likely your ad account, to be getting you better results. So watch this video again or follow along and look at your ad account and see if you're making any of these mistakes. And again, if you're still having trouble, I run tons of Google ads for tons of companies. So if you go down in the description below, I would love to give you a free audit. If you fill out the contact form on my website, I will call you back personally within 5 minutes. I'll ask you what's your spend, what's your company, where you're located. We'll put a time in the calendar. We'll get on a call together, and I'll give you the most in-depth audit via document and live on the call to help you see what is going on. So I will see you guys in the next video.